Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, everybody, back to our
Hello.
virtual summit. Today, our special guest is Denise Hampton. Say hey, Denise.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here.
I am happy to have you. So, before we get started, we are like in what is this, day 11 of this virtual summit, and just great experience. We have some great
Woo!
speakers and some greatness that is happening, okay? So,
Yes.
Denise, Miss Hampton, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Yeah. So my name is Denise Hampton. I am the business owner of Beyond Hired. And Beyond Hired is an organization where we look beyond hiring our applicants in the correctional space, meaning the
Mhm.
correctional agency law enforcement space, right? So years ago, I used to be a correction officer, and I saw there was a need in the correctional space. So here I am today as a consultant for our law enforcement agency.
I love that. I love that. So beyond hiring. So I did my doc project on hiring for sustainability because I feel like I recognized that there was this issue. We was hiring people, but they wasn't staying. And
Yes.
so I started looking at hiring people based off of what their purpose to do, what they love to do, what they do and not get paid for. And so a lot of times people, they go into the government, they go into these federal government jobs for the paycheck, not because they love what they do. And the reality is anything in law enforcement, whether it's in an institution, whether it's on the streets, probation, parole, like you have to love the people. You have to love your job. And
Yes.
so tell me more, what has happened in with the business that you have? What have you noticed that the hiring practices are now and what is the vision that we would want to get to?
So, what I've noticed and what I've experienced firsthand is when correctional agencies, most of them, when they hire, right, because there's a need,
Mm-hmm.
hands down, there's definitely a need to fill those positions in the correctional space and law enforcement across the board. So, when the applicant qualifies, they go through this rigorous background, they pass the background, they interview successfully. However, when they get on the floors in the real world in a correctional space, they realize, oh, this is not for me. And I get it because working in as a correction officer, trust me, you wear many hats. It's like another world, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
now you're leading, you're supervising, you're in this leadership position where you're supervising detainees or inmates from it can be anywhere from different ages, from minors like
Mm-hmm.
13, 14, all the way to adults, like people who can be your grandparents, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a correctional officer, you have this expectation as if, you're supposed to have all the answers. You're supposed to know
Mm-hmm.
it from the inmate's perspective, right? And we do our best as correction officers to successfully lead these people to turn their lives around, right? We try to
Mm-hmm.
be, we do our best to be great examples for them and to help them. When I say help them, like guide them on a different journey.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So as a correction officer, yeah, it's just the expectation is so high of us.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us, we do have this really positive outlook, uh,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, okay, we can reach this person, we can help them, we can, change this space for them. And most time it's the environment, right? Because when they're in the facility, the inmates, they have, some of them, they grasp what the knowledge that we're teaching them, this positive outlook, they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
We, provide them with the tools to change their lives around because they have classes that they can attend. They have workshops, the different tools that and resources that we provide them. However, when they get released, They go back to their familiar environment. And what
Mhm.
happens is it's survival, right?
Mhm.
They go back to that survival mentality, whereas they may not follow up on the resources we provide them for the outside world.
Mhm.
They may need a family member or someone who's close to them on the outside world to really help them stay motivated, and they may not have that, so they lose that contact with us, and then they revert back to the lifestyle that led them um, to get arrested. So that's what we struggle with.
Yeah, that is definitely a struggle. And so you were a correctional officer. I worked on the probation side after they came out.
Mhm.
And as I'm listening to you talk, a lot of times it would be great if there was more collaboration between community supervision and, when they're still in the institution, because sometimes there is, but it's like there needs to be like this, maybe a more intensive warm handoff for the people that are in the institution to come on the street. How much connected were you to the probation and parole officers when they were leaving your institution?
So as far as probation goes, there is not, because I was a floor officer, right? So
Mhm.
I was more hands-on with the inmates as far as, okay, um, how can I help you? What do you need as far as what can we do to
Mhm.
change this situation around for you? Okay. So now when it comes to their probation officer, if they get probation, it's not necessarily that they may get probation, right? They may just have time
Mhm.
served, and then they just, go back to their daily routine, their
Mhm.
daily life. So even if they do have probation, if their mindset is not changed, Dr. Douglas, if it's just a temporary, okay, yes, Officer Hamilton, I'm going to make these changes. I will implement this into my life. I will do the things. That sounds good. Some of them may be
Mhm.
motivated in that space. However, if their mindset has not changed, they will revert back to,
Mhm.
that lifestyle that they once lived, right? The lifestyle that got
Mhm.
them there. Now, as far as like the correctional officers go, right? There's
Mhm.
it's a heavy weight to lift because we have to keep it together, right? In many
Mhm.
aspects, because we deal with so many different personalities, right? There's so many different personalities in the correctional space. So we have to make sure that our mindset is together as well. We have to make
Mhm.
that we're able mentally, not just
Mm.
physically, mentally,
Mhm.
psychologically, physiologically ready, right, to deal and take on these different quests, right?
Mhm.
So for me, what I used to do as a practice, and I try to teach it to the detainees as well, right?
Mhm.
Start your day, have a purpose. Like, what is your goal? Your plan to improve your space, not only
Mhm.
for you, but for your loved ones, for your future,
Mhm.
just to improve your life. And we have to do that as people all together, not just in the correctional space,
Mhm.
but,
Mhm.
just in the human race. When you wake up, start your day, have some type of intentional about your day. So for me, I will ground myself in my mindfulness practices, right? I wake up with my mindfulness. I play water sound music in the background. I love listening to the water sound because it helps clear my mind to
Mhm.
start my day, right? And if I'm experiencing, just say like something challenging mentally, I will play
Mhm.
water sounds in the background just to kind of help, relax me as I go throughout my day and as I'm getting prepared to go to work in the correctional space. So that way, I know that what I'm about to, uh, when I start my day in the correctional in the facility, what I'm about to encounter is just, don't take it personally, because there are many times where it's so easy as a correction officer, we may take things personally, but we have to remind ourselves what we're experiencing, from the detainees. It is not about us, right?
Mm-hmm.
The detainees, they're dealing with their own personal issues. They need a space or someone to vent to. So, we're their outlet. We're the closest thing to them, to the outside world. So they're coming at us full force.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, we have to make sure we stay grounded to take on these different challenges. Because we don't know all the answers, but they look to us to have all the answers, to be buttoned up and have it together. But we're human too. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we don't have all the answers, right? So, but we do our best to make sure that, first that our safety, is met, and then
Mm-hmm.
that we're able to help these different, you know, um, detainees.
I want to take it back a little bit because you
Mhm,
said something that really stuck out to me. You said,
mhm,
it's important for us to not only take care of our physical health,
mhm,
but to also take care of our mental health. And a
mhm,
lot of times in this field, like you have to stay fit just in case something go down. You got to be ready,
mhm,
right? So a lot of times we
mhm,
focus on our physical health, but not so much our mental health. And
mhm,
I think also in this field, a lot of times, if you express that you are having some, like you're feeling off or you're having some mental health challenges, a
mhm.
lot of times the environment pretty much tells you to suck it up.
Yep,
Suck it
yep.
up. You weak. You all these things. You can't handle the job. You can't handle the functions of the job. Because at one point that was said about me, in my the space that I was in, and I was like,
Mhm,
oh, I'm fine, but the environment is what's
mhm,
toxic. The environment is what's now allowing me to be my best self. It has nothing to do with my capability of doing the job or being weak. And so, a lot of times so in order for it not to be looked at as I'm weak, then they
mhm,
suppress it and they don't take care of it. They don't get therapy. They don't get counseling. They don't do the things that they need to do to take care of their mental health.
mhm,
So then they're not well. So you could be a
mhm.
strong, unwell human being. And so can
Yeah,
we talk a little bit more about that? And does your business do anything to address those kind of issues that
absolutely,
arise?
absolutely. So, Dr. Douglas, you said something there. So, imagine when you were going through your own mental struggles, whatever that looked like for you,
Mhm,
and that was frowned upon, right? That
mhm,
was you were looked at to be, okay, you're this weak person, but which is not true. Okay, so
mhm,
imagine you're dealing with that from whomever you dealt with that with. So imagine all these detainees, the inmates, looking at you the same way, like, okay, the pressures are on, like, okay, you're this weak person. No, you're not weak, just because you don't have all the answers, because they look at us
mhm,
to be so buttoned up, right? That we should
mhm,
be this, I guess, this unfeeling type being. Like, we don't, we should be able to just deal with whatever. So what Beyond Hire has, we do have Correct app. There's an app, Correct, correct,
mhm,
right? And for
mhm.
correction officer, that's where I get the name from.
Nice. Oh, that's
Yeah,
cute.
correct. Thank you. So it's a mental health app for law enforcement.
Oh, I love
So
that.
thank you. So the officers, they would download the app, so they would have 24/7 access to mental wellness. So say for instance, if an officer just experienced something traumatic, right?
Mhm,
Because we do experience occupational trauma. So if they
mhm,
experience something traumatic, all they have to do is go to the app, pull out their phone. Of course, after the situation is resolved, they take a minute for themselves to regroup. They can go to the app. There is mindfulness exercises on the app
mhm,
that will allow them the opportunity to just detach from that traumatic experience they had just
mhm,
experienced. So it gives them that leverage to just regroup and reground themselves, to come to a space where, okay, just to be mindful, right? Because it's very important. And that's where it starts, right?
Mhm.
It starts in the mind. So once they're able to just kind of release that pressure of
Mhm.
whatever they just experienced, now they can come back to this space where they are to better lead and supervise the detainees. Because when we go through traumatic experience and then you have to go back on the floor and just continue on and do your job and
Mm.
do whatever, that's really harsh and it's hard. It's hard to
Mhm.
just wrap your head around what you just experienced. Now you have to fully function as a
Mhm.
correction officer. You have to steer, guide and care and have custody and supervise, all these men and women that you're in charge of. You need a moment for yourself first to just
Mhm.
regroup, right? And then even on the correct app, you can journal. You can journal what you just experienced.
Nice.
So say for instance, something that you experienced and you go to the mindfulness exercise, you can journal, okay, how did this experience affect me? You can journal that. So that way you can get it out. Because a lot of times we keep things in. We don't we
Mhm.
may speak about it for a moment or two, but it's still there. But I find like when you journal and you go through the mindfulness exercises, it helps you to release these things and to better deal with them and cope. So now you can go back and deal and lead these detainees.
Mhm.
If the experience is so traumatic, Dr. Douglas, to the point where you know that the mindfulness exercises is just not getting you to the space where you need, you can link to a coach that will help you through the process, that can guide you if you just need to talk to someone, no matter if it's what, because corrections is 24/7, law enforcement is 24/7. So if you just need to speak to someone, just say, this is what I just witnessed, this is what I'm feeling, you know they'll be able to help talk you through those emotions, because they're
Mhm.
different emotions. you know
Mhm.
you feel that way for a reason. However, you may have a challenging time getting past what you experience, and you just need to get through it. So we
So
do have. Mhm.
no, yeah. I mean, I love the app. I love that there's a coach connected
Thank
to
you.
the app.
Thank you.
Um, what as you're talking, I'm thinking a lot of times they say you have it. The things that you go through are not for yourself; they're for other people. And so,
Mhm.
what inspired you to come up with something like this? Like, what is your transformational journey that took you from corrections to now doing what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So while working as a correction officer, I was like 8 months pregnant, right?
Mm.
With my daughter, I was 8 months pregnant, and I was transporting three uh, prisoners because they came back because I was working in the county jail. They came back to the county jail for court. They had court, right? While transporting these three prisoners in the elevator broke down. And I was so, but thankfully, right, these prisoners, they looked at me and they immediately they backed away.
Mm.
And they told me, they said, Officer Hampton, we would never do anything to harm you. And I was so grateful because it's like, what am I to do in this elevator with three prisoners?
Mm.
I'm 8 months pregnant. And I can hear my colleagues, they were out there struggling, trying to get that door open. I'm so grateful to them
Mm.
for doing that, right? But in that moment, I realized, okay, Denise, you still got to go back to work. Your
Mm.
leadership team expect for you to go through this. Once you get, if you get through this, because no one knows the outcome.
Mhm.
Grateful that it was a positive one,
Mhm. Mhm.
but there was still work to do,
Yeah.
right? So I said, now what if what can I do? Like, what could be implemented in the correctional setting, in this space, to help officers who experience something like this to just have a moment, a mindfulness moment to themselves, to just regroup, because we know we still got to do the thing
Mhm.
that we signed up to do, right? So long story short, I had already pursued my bachelor's degree in psychology,
Mm-hmm.
because that was very important. Understanding the human dynamic, the way the mind works, right?
Mm-hmm.
How
Mm-hmm.
some people are able to, get through certain things, some people are not, just depending on, the experiences of each individual. So after I got my bachelor's degree in psychology, I went on and pursued my master's degree in industrial organizational psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where that's the work, the occupational side of psychology, where we study workplace behaviors and all those things. So
Mm-hmm.
with the psychology, my bachelor's in psychology and the master's degree together, I was able to do more research and come up with a way to implement a tool that can better serve the correctional setting, law enforcement across the board, right? Having a 24/7 tool available to you just to say, hey, even police officers in their car when they're parked and they just need a moment to just regroup
Mm-hmm.
because with so much that they experience. Let me
Mm-hmm.
just, find a way to really serve me in this moment. How can I get past this? How can I get through my shift, even if it's just enough to get through their shift, right? They pull out the app, they're able to go to whatever tool that they need within the app, and they're able to
Mm-hmm.
just ground it in that moment and get themselves back together, because we still have to lead, we still have to serve, we
Mm-hmm.
still, we have jobs to do, we have a duty.
I love that. I love
Thank,
that.
thank
Because you didn't just take it and like sit with it and be like wallow
no.
in the misery of what just happened or what
No.
could have happened. Like you like, what can I do in case something happens like this to somebody else? Like creating that
Yeah.
space for them to be safe and
That's how my brain works, Dr. Douglas. It's like if I experience this, that means someone else somewhere
mm,
is experiencing this. And I've seen officers experience traumatic, experiences across the board, right?
yeah,
I'm not saying one individual person experience something every day, but you have officers that experience things every day and they need an
every
outlet.
day, every
And
day.
it's, yeah, and it's unfortunate that some of them they can't cope, right?
Yeah.
They can't, and unfortunately they take their own lives, or they go home,
Mm,
okay, and they take it out on their family, right? Their loved ones, the frustration,
mm,
because they don't know how to cope with it, right? They feel like they're in it alone. The family, the loved ones, they don't understand their job. They don't understand the
mm,
struggle. And I get it. Maybe they don't understand it, but you still have to
mhm,
go home and be mommy. You still have to go home and be daddy, right? Husband, wife, or whatever the case may be, daughter, son. You still have to go home and be that person. So it's like, how do you, detach from work, right? Before you get home, how do you leave, actually really leave work at work?
mhm,
All
mhm,
the things
mhm,
that you have experienced, how do you leave that be there? How do you leave it there and go home and be, 100% present with your
mhm,
love, and not, you know, taking this heavy weight from the job or something you experience home with you. Not every day is going to be heavy, but most part it is. For the most part it
mhm,
is. You
mhm.
deal with quite a bit.
Yeah. That coping piece is huge.
Hmm.
When I think about struggles that I might have had in my career, I always think back to the leadership that I had at the time and how
Hmm.
they either made me feel supported in that time or not so much. I remember I used to work in a domestic violence unit, and at one point the clients would get picked up in our office,
Hmm.
and one of the things that you were telling the stories, you had a good rapport with people, right? And so the way that they treated you, even in the midst of something that could have gone left, they still
Hmm.
respected you because you more than likely treated them well prior to that incident,
Absolutely.
right? And so
Absolutely.
I had a guy, he was in my office, he had a warrant, so the police was coming to pick him up. The police walk in, and so the police was like, sir, can you please stand up? And he was like, no, I'm having a conversation with Miss Douglas. And I said, no, 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 no. We'll we can talk later. Like you got a warrant.
Yes,
Go on
yes,
with your
yes.
nice officers and come back out. And so we'll talk when you get out of jail. And
Yes.
so he was like, no, we not finished talking. And so the officers finally said, sir, please stand up. And they was like, no, I'm not done talking. And so he clearly
Mhm.
has some anger management and authority issues. I
Yeah.
mean, just So then
Yeah.
the police officer takes him physically, picks him up, and he starts fighting the officers in my office, knocked over my hutch, knocked over my computer, just tore up my entire office. And while he's fighting with the officers, he's like, Miss Douglas, you gonna let them do this to me? And I'm like, sir, like there is absolutely nothing I can do. I need you to calm down.
Yeah.
And so, after all that happened, one of the supervisors that was supervising me at the time came down. She's like, how you doing? Gave me a hug. And another supervisor came and was like, they were talking about the report that I had to write up. And they was just really like matter of fact about what happened.
Mhm.
And so then I brought
Mhm.
it to her attention. I was like, this traumatic thing for me happened, not knowing what could
Yeah.
happen. I wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily scared, but I was like, what is like, this is, and I'm like, so and so
Yeah.
came, like they gave me a hug, like they made me feel like like how whatever I was going through was important. And so
Mhm.
her response was, well, I can give you a hug too. And I was like, it's over now. I don't need a hug 3 days later. I needed a hug that day, or I needed someone
Yes.
to tell me
Yes.
that it was going to be okay that day and to go home or
Yeah.
whatever, right? But to have
Yeah.
like me being the priority and not like the report being the priority, or the how it got there, like check on me first.
Yes.
And so when we think about leadership in these
Uh-huh.
spaces and the wellness of the leader, because if the leader is not well, the people won't be well, and then they won't
Absolutely.
be able to take care of the people in those trying times. So my mission for the until I died 115, because that's I'm gonna live to be 115,
There you
is
go.
is
Yeah.
to have a major impact
Yeah.
on leaders. Like I've created multiple programs to help leadership be developed and be able to have the emotional intelligence, how to, you talked earlier about everyone got different personalities and,
Yes.
all those things. So what's your vision, or what's your view on the importance of wellness for the leaders?
Absolutely. So it goes back again to like mindset, Dr. Douglas, right? We have to start with the mind. We have to understand the importance of growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we can't stay stuck in our own little bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to, expand outside of that bubble and understand in a leadership position, you have people that leans on you, that you're accountable for, that looks up to you. So what do you have to do in that space? You have, if you don't have the leadership skills, you have to learn them. You have to go out and take the classes, the courses, whatever you have to do to make sure you're showing up as
Mm-hmm.
that leader that someone can count on and believe in. Because what's good with having the title, right? If you're really not showing up as that figure, you
Mm-hmm.
just have the title. So that weighs on your team. You're not
Mm-hmm.
showing up as the leader that they need. So, for example, for what you experienced with that inmate who got into the physical altercation with the officers, for you that was traumatic, and I'm sure it was traumatic for the officers. They didn't want to have to do that.
No.
No, they did not want to have to do that, right? So for them, that was, I'm sure, traumatic for them as well. So when the leadership team, learned of that, first let me check on my officer, make sure my officer is okay, right? How, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
how are you? Douglas, how are you, Dr. Douglas? At the time, I'm not sure your
No,
title,
but
but how are you?
I was on you like
Yeah,
yeah.
let me check in with Douglas, make sure Douglas okay. Let me check in with the officers. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's good, right? Because now it makes you proud to represent an organization such as that
Mm-hmm.
organization, because your leadership team cares about you because how they show up for you, right? Now, Dr. Douglas, I'm sorry, at the time, Douglas, uh, do you need help with the report? Because you have to get the report out, of course. That's part of your job. Do you need time? What do you need, to get this
Mm-hmm.
report out? follow up with you to see where you are in that space. So now you
Mhm.
can show up and better present yourself. So yeah, that's
Mhm.
very important. Wellness and leadership is definitely a must have. Going over
Mhm.
those key factors that I mentioned earlier about, being mindful about your day. How do you start your day? Making sure that you're, capable and you're able to lead how you're supposed to. You're showing up as that leader because that's a
Mhm.
serious position, right? Being a correction officer, if you're a sergeant, lieutenant, corporal, whatever, you know, a CO, those are very important titles. They
Yeah.
carry weight behind their name regardless
Mhm.
of the title. You still you are still a leader.
Mhm.
You're supervising, multiple, like I say, personalities, people, different walks of life. You don't know what you're walking into.
Mhm.
You want to make sure you are together,
Yeah.
regardless of what comes your way. When you
Mhm.
are together, mentally, physically, physiologically, when you are together, you can show up in these spaces and represent yourself how you're
Mhm.
supposed to as that leader
Mhm.
with the authority figure. Mhm.
Absolutely. One of um one of the challenges in all law
Mhm.
enforcement, whether you're police, corrections, on the street, probation, parole, anywhere, is the balance between public safety, the safety of the inmates, the safety of the community, and then the
Mhm.
wellness of your people.
Mhm.
And a lot of times our focus is more on public safety than on developing our people.
Mhm.
It's a, and I don't know that they know that. I think that they think they're taking care of their people because that's all they know. And a lot of times we'll say, send people to training. We send people to training, train. The training does not solve problems. Training is like
Mhm.
planting the seed. And then the leaders water the seed that was planted in training. And so there's
Mhm.
this coaching aspect that I think a lot of times we miss, whatever it is that we're being trained on, because we're just sending them to the training department. And they're
Mhm.
saturated with all this knowledge. And
Mhm.
adult learners can only take but so much information at a time and then apply it. So it's like you have the knowledge and then you have to apply the knowledge that you have, but then you have to be coached to that knowledge, right? And so if our focus is on creating all these assessments and things for the
Mhm.
population, but we're not taking the time to invest in our people, to send them to programs, to have them be coached, but our focus is on the population that we're serving. Do you see that also in, I know we're in different areas, but do you also
Mhm.
see that in your experience in dealing with the population and dealing with staff that work in these areas? Is that something that comes up for you too?
Absolutely. So to address the part about community, Dr. Douglas, perception, right?
Mm,
Perception. So if the community says, yes, agency XYZ does a great job, right? It's all about the perception. As
mm,
long as the community agrees and you're not getting any negative feedback from the community, unfortunately, some agencies, that is what they look towards. That is what matters to them. However, when it comes to training, right? When it comes to training, unfortunately, it's about checking the box.
mm,
All these officers, right? They have to be trained. They have to show that they had their training. Yep, the paper is signed. They had the training. We don't. We're supposed to do. Regardless of, is this officer really showing up? Are we really investing in our officers?
mm,
Providing the support that they need, the
mhm,
wellness. Are they okay? Let's check in with our officers to see how we can better show up for them,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
So they can be the officers, the upstanding officers that we hire them to be.
mm,
If we have our officers' wellness at the forefront, all the other things will fall in place. The
mhm,
training, all that stuff, you can check your boxes. They're going to show up because we're investing in our officers. When you
mhm,
have strong, well rounded officers, the community is taken care of. right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're investing in our officers. We're
Mm-hmm.
investing in their mental, physical, emotional, their training, their education. We're providing to them the things that they need to be better, to
Mm-hmm.
feel like they're showing up and being the best that they can be, whether it's an officer, just a human being. They're going
Mm-hmm.
home to their families after they leave work. They have to go home to and deal with their loved ones and be with their loved ones. They want to show up as well as they possibly can, especially leaving that type of setting. That is, law enforcement is no joke, right? That is a heavy weight to lift. It is nothing to be taken just to be checking boxes to
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, if they had this training. No, we have to dig deeper and go further, as our leadership team. And trust me, we do have some great leaders who have
Mm-hmm.
cried, right, and who have, stood in front and pleaded and say, hey, can we do this? Can we implement this program? We do have leaders out there that's doing that want to go further than just checking the boxes and just hiring applicants because they look good on paper. We have
Yes.
leaders that do want to invest in their officers the best way they possibly can, right? So, that's important when it comes to, showing up as great leaders in the community, because I feel when you have your leadership team and your officers, when those boxes are checked, when we're making sure that we're investing in our officers, meaning the leadership and the floor officers or the road out deputies or whatever the titles are, the
Mm-hmm.
community will be well served.
I'm allergic to the word checkbox, right? Like
Yeah,
I like cringe, right?
yeah,
Because it's just
absolutely, and you should.
like why is that acceptable? I remember when I first got to the agency, there was this saying that was like, can your case pass the Washington Post test? And it was like CYA. And I was like, first of all,
Mhm.
if I'm doing a job, like you said, it's all gonna fall in line. Like I'm gonna do the things that I'm supposed to do. So whether it passed the Washington Post or not, that's someone's perception of whether I'm doing a good job or not.
Mhm.
But if I'm doing the things that have been aligned for me to do, they say if you're searching for something, you're gonna find it.
Yeah.
And so if you're searching for something that I missed, you're gonna find it. But
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
goal is to do a good job and to make the referrals or help them in whatever areas that you're supposed to be helping them in, whatever. But our focus is so much on the perception. And like you said, if the community
Yeah.
says okay, whether I'm doing a good job or not, it's because they
Yeah.
said I'm good, so I'm good. So I ain't gotta do nothing else. So I remember I was in a unit where I loved the unit I was in. I was doing training and all type of stuff. And then I got moved to another unit, and it was where they were actually doing the work. And some of the stuff was just not in line with some of the stuff that we had talked about in training. And so like the responses were just like I was like having emotional reactions to some of the meetings
Mhm.
I was in. I'll be
Mhm.
like making faces, and like my supervisor will be texting me talking about fix your face. And I'm like, no, because they just said, like, did you hear what they just said? Like, is this
Yeah.
what we doing? And so
Yeah.
I was like, you know how like there's times in your life when I said as I was transitioning out of my job, you get when you really care about your job, you either go two
Mhm.
directions, right? You get to the point where you just don't care and you
Mhm.
just do enough to get by, right? Like you just show up.
Yeah.
Or you get like angry because you're like, I know that there's something that can be done. And then like you get rebellious and then just outright disrespectful because you're like, we have a duty, we have a responsibility, and y'all are focused on checking boxes. So
Yeah.
I went and
Yeah.
I made me a shirt. You remember Joe Clark?
That name sounds familiar.
Joe Clark from Lean On Me?
Ah, yes, yes.
Uh-huh. And so I said I feel like Joe Clark, but instead
Mhm.
of a bat, I walk around with a microphone because I say I'm gonna be a talk show host, and they say just for the job that you want, not the one that you have. And so I walk
Yeah.
around with a nice sparkling microphone because listen, this is the job. I need my voice to be heard. And so I would,
Yes.
loud. So I made
Absolutely.
a t-shirt and it said Joe Clark Energy. And on the back of the shirt, I'm gonna read it to you. It says Joe Clark Energy, it's a noun, and channeling the boldness, determination, and passion of Joe Clark, not the status quo, doing what is right, not just what's accepted.
Mm.
Times we work
Yes.
places where they just do the things that's accepted, they check the
Yeah.
box. And I need people to know. I told my supervisor, I said, I sent her the picture of the shirt, the design. I got one of my
Uh-huh.
coworkers to make. And I
Uh-huh.
said, this is about to be my new uniform. Wear this to
Absolutely.
work every day. And so
And
she was
most of those boxes are so dated, Dr. Douglas. Those boxes that they had us checking, they're
damn.
so dated. Yes.
When did y'all write this policy? In
Yes.
1998? What we doing? Why are we doing
Yes.
that? Does it still
Yes.
make sense today?
No.
No. So what are we doing? Can we write
Yes.
another one? And because
Yes.
of the amount of work it takes to get another one written and all the, like it just stays. The oldness
Yes.
just stays,
Yes.
but we're not.
Yes.
And so then we're holding people accountable to this stale policy when there's
Yes.
like so many other things that we could be doing. And
Yes.
so also when we think about good leadership, the only reason I did not wear that shirt every day is because she said, Levine, can we please find a to get your message across without you wearing the shirt to work? Because this is
Yes.
not appropriate. This t-shirt is not appropriate for work.
Yes. Well, I love it.
But I
I
was like,
love it.
I need the people to hear my see my
I
dissatisfaction. Let
love
me go
it.
to this manager's meeting with this t-shirt on.
Yes.
She said don't do it, so I didn't because I respected her.
Okay.
But but so one of the things that I love to do, this has been a really great conversation. I think what you're
Thank
doing
you.
is absolutely amazing. One of the
Thank you.
things that I would like for you to share is one of practical things that people can do to focus on their wellness, whether they're line staff, whether they're leadership. When you spoke about waking up in the morning, and everybody might not like water, right? Like you might like loud music and that just kind of gets you going, whatever.
Mhm.
But what are some practical things when we think about wellness, when we think about grounding ourselves, when we think about not only taking care of our physical health, but also our mental health? What are some things that people can do today? Because the goal of this summit is a transformational intelligence. So in your mind, and also in like the
Mhm.
practical things that you're doing, what are some things that they can do today as they go into the new year that they can start today to actually do to take care of themselves?
Oh, yes. So now, don't misunderstand me. I do love my music. I tell you, I do. I do start my day. So I do start my day with my mindfulness, being intentional. So the advice that I
Yeah.
would have is to be intentional, right? About why, no, what is my why, right? Why am I
Mm-hmm.
doing this? So just take a minute or two, right? When I say being mindful, just sit in quietness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Resetting your mind to start your day. So wake up. Journaling is very important for me. So I will advise people to journal, to write down their thoughts. Like I don't if it's something that made them happy. It doesn't have to always be something that they're
I love
struggling
that.
with or challenges. It can be happy thoughts because you want to remember what made you happy as well. So that's also included in the correct app, right? What made you happy? How do you feel today? So you do these self check-ins. How do you feel today? Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's happy, sad, nervous, you, you journal those thoughts, those feelings, those emotions, right? What did you do to overcome? Or
Mm-hmm.
what is it that you can what happened in your life that caused you to be happy or feel this, this feeling or expression of happiness? Because you want to remember what took you to that place of happiness or peace or whatever it is that made you, to help you reset and get you
Mm-hmm.
to a place where you're able to show up and be this, this positive person for yourself and for others, right? So to me,
Mm-hmm.
um, meditation is very important. So that's when I was telling you about the mindfulness. That's all a part of meditation, journaling, because you're being intentional when you're taking on these practices. That is showing that you're being intentional about showing up for yourself, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that way
Mm-hmm.
you can be the better person for you, for your loved ones, for those that you are supervising, whether you're supervising them in a leadership role or whatever space you're in, but you want to be intentional about your
Mm-hmm.
journey. So that's the
Okay.
advice that I have, just to show up, be intentional, journal your thoughts, write them down, write them out so you can see
Mhm.
your thoughts, write them out. So that way you can know how to better approach them, what practices that you, even if you play basketball, you say you like to listen to music. I love to listen to my music too. It get me
Mhm.
hyped, get me
Mhm.
excited, put me on
Mhm.
this journey. I love to work out. Working out
Mhm.
is very important. I would go, downstairs, do a nice quick, doesn't have to be a long workout, good
Right.
30-minute workout,
Mhm.
to sweat. Sweating helps to release as well. That's why it's good. Working out is more than just building muscles, right? When
Yeah,
you sweat, it does help you to release toxins from your body. So if you can get a good sweat in, get a good sweat in, right? Go and shower. I promise you, you'll feel better.
I love that. I love that. One of the things that I will add to your list is the gratitude. A lot of times when you focus
Yes.
on the positive things that is happening,
Mhm.
earlier in one of the sessions that we had earlier this week, it was one of the facilitators wrote a 21-day gratitude journal. So like just focusing on the gratitude and things that are going well as opposed to things that are just not going well.
Absolutely.
Um, and then managing your space. We had talked before we started the recording about bubbles, and I
Mhm.
like
Yes.
I'm a nice little bubble, and
Yep.
there's very few people in my bubble, and I love my bubble because it's safe
Yes.
place. This is Christmas time
Absolutely.
now, so I'm a fan of Christmas movies, and I watch Christmas movies all day in my
I
little
love
bubble. Uh-huh.
I love it.
So
Mhm. Yes.
they all in happy. Everyone
Yes.
is doing well while there is some misunderstandings throughout the movie. They
Yep.
always end up on the right direction, and I love it all.
I
And
love it. Yes. Absolutely.
so, yeah, so thank you so much. I appreciate
It's my
you
pleasure.
coming here. Is there any final words that you would like to share? Anything that you would want to tell them how to find you? Anything you want to tell the
Yes.
people?
Most importantly, Dr. Douglas, just show up as your authentic self. Like you mentioned, I have a gratitude alarm set for 6:30 every night. 6:30, it never fails. My gratitude alarm goes off and it just reminds me to stop what I'm doing and
Mhm.
just to be mindful and, just be grateful. What happened for me that day that I'm grateful for. So every day I think of something, right, that I can be grateful for every
Um,
day. So at 6:30, that's my time. I quiet everything and I'm just grateful for whatever, like for this interview with you. At 6:30, you'll be included in my gratitude. Very grateful for this opportunity. So, yeah, just showing up as your authentic self and making sure that you're well, making sure you're well. And if you're not, raise your hand. Right.
mhm,
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I need you. So, yeah, you can reach me at beyondhired.com. That's
mhm.
www.beyondhired.com. So that's beyondhired.com. And I'm Denise Hampton. You can find me on all the social sites, Beyond Hired or Denise Hampton. And I'll be happy to follow up with you and assist you along your journey.
I love that. Well, thank you so much.
It's my
Uh,
pleasure.
this was great conversation. Hopefully, people will reach
Yes.
out to you because the app sounds absolutely amazing and necessary for all
Yes.
places where there's some peace that needs to happen in the midst of the trauma and all the stuff they have to deal with. So, thank you so
Absolutely.
much. I look forward to working
It's
with
my
you more in the
pleasure.
future. This is a great
Absolutely.
conversation, and
Thank you.
we will be in touch. And everybody else,
Absolutely.
tomorrow is our day 12, and we're gonna
Yay.
do some writing the vision and making it plain. It's gonna be a live. It's gonna be a live show. We're writing. Have you seen the Steve Harvey video where it says write 300 things that you believe in God for and read them every day?
I have not, but I do listen
I'm
to
gonna
Steve
email.
Harvey. But
I'm gonna email you the link that we're gonna play
please do.
tomorrow. But we're also gonna like live have
I
help
would
people
love
write.
that.
Yeah, so
Please
that's
do.
that's that's we're gonna do that New Year's Day at 7
Like a
p.m.
vision board. It reminds me of a vision board.
It does. It does, but
Yeah.
it's like some people, yeah, it is a vision board, but it's something that you can read verbally. Because I don't know
Yeah.
if you've read the book Think and Grow, which they talk about auto suggestion and the things that you say
Yes.
out loud that talks to your subconscious. So it's a whole bunch of things that we're working on.
Okay,
So
I
yes.
love that. Thank you.
So hopefully you'll be able to join us tomorrow too as well. And
Absolutely.
this was fun. So we will be in touch and we'll see you all
Yes.
tomorrow.
Thank